This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Scott Howell.
Hello, good neighbors. Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast, brought to you by the Friends and Neighbors Group of the greater Chattanooga area, all the way from Cleveland down to Dalton and everywhere in between. My name is Scott Howell, and I'm your host. For you first-time listeners that might be wondering, what is this Good Neighbor Podcast all about? Well, it's designed to bring awareness to the residents of our communities regarding the locally owned and or operated businesses throughout the greater Chattanooga area, all like we mentioned before, Cleveland, Dalton, all the different areas. No, not one is more important than the other, but unfortunately, time prevents us from calling every little community name. But all the businesses are important. And, small local businesses are the backbone of our communities, and they really do need our support. Join me today is Nate Byram at Guaranteed Rate. So, Nate, man, we're so glad to have you as our special guest on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, man, the honor is ours. And we're ready to dive in a moment and learn a little bit more about Guaranteed Rate. But I would like for you to just share with me a little bit about yourself and your family, if you would.
Yeah, so I've been married for going on 10 years now. I've got two kids, a boy and a girl. They're 2 and 3 years old. We live in Ottawa, so we're local to the area. Transplants. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. Moved here in about 2010 to go to school at Lee University in Cleveland. And so I met my wife there, and, I was just going to get a business degree, but she's had 3 or 4 generations of family that have all met at Lee and got married. So of course she was looking for a husband, but I got both and came out really good. And so 2014 is when I started in the mortgage industry. So going on 10 years.
Lee University has brought a lot of good people to this area. I've had the honor and privilege of interviewing several people. One that came all the way from Nicaragua because of Lee University. I mean, just a lot of good folks.
Yeah, the outreach that the church and that the school does is pretty extensive. I mean, it's worldwide. I mean, we definitely graduated with people that came from different countries. So you're right; they definitely bring a great coup, a good education as well.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, let's just jump in if you would and tell us all about Guaranteed Rate.
Yeah, so Guaranteed Rate's kind of a newer name in the Chattanooga area. So we pretty much service the Southeast. So the company as a whole can do loans in 50 states. My branch here in Ottawa is licensed pretty much in the Southeast, Kentucky, Indiana, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, the Carolinas. So we primarily help clients in the, kind of the North Georgia area in Chattanooga, but a lot of people buying vacation homes toward the coast as well. So we want to be able to help them. But a new name, Guaranteed Rates, a second largest company in the United States, kind of real big out west and kind of in the northern states. Our headquarters is in Chicago. Our owner, Victor, is a big sports fan. So we've got quite a few hockey team contracts and stadiums for baseball and a few other things. I think, I like to bass fish too. So he sponsored the Bassmaster a couple of times as well. But great company. Local team and operations here, and residential mortgages is essentially what we do.
Well, that's what we're trying our best to promote, is the local part of that business. And Nate, we're glad to meet you and learn that much about it. So tell us about your journey. You come out of college and you got that degree. How did you wind up in the mortgage business?
Yeah, so I'm a second generation mortgage guy. My mom is in mortgages as well. She got me an internship in graduating high school. And so I worked there and kind of helped pay my way through school as I interned back home in Florida for this mortgage company. So they offered me a full-time position after I graduated college. And so I was a loan officer in a big call center, kind of like a Rocket Mortgage type. And I absolutely hated it. It was terrible. I worked long hours. It's just no relationships, no local really anything. It was just portfolio stuff. And it was a great learning experience, but I actually tried to get out of mortgages moving back here to Tennessee and tried to do something else, but I got pulled back in and decided, I would give the mortgage operations a kind of a try. So for about 6 years, I did that. Mortgage operations essentially are the great hardworking folks that fit the pieces of the puzzle of the loan together and move it through the stages of the process from start to finish. And And so I learned a lot about putting together loans. Fast forward then to about 2018, we moved back to Chattanooga, and we had two very bad experiences over our lifetime buying houses. And so finally I was like, man, I've got a superior knowledge set of, we've denied 0 loans in my career, which is a big feat, a big milestone. And so I was like, man, if I could combine the knowledge with a great experience, because you don't really see that much in a mortgage, in real estate world in general, I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to give this a try again and be a little bit more referral based instead of big call center. So 2020 is when I officially launched as a loan officer again here in Chattanooga. And it's it's been a steady increase year over year as we progress since 2020. So,
all right. Well, you talk about we talk about mortgages, we talk about real estate. Of course, a few years ago the rate was on the bottom. People refinancing, buying houses, buying multiple houses, just a lot of moving and shaking going on. And now the rates went up, and things slowed down a little bit, and maybe not so much in Chattanooga, but in some other areas. But still, there's been a little bit of a slowdown nationwide. Can you tell us about maybe some myths and misconceptions that people might have right now about taking the plunge?
Well, there's no secret that if you follow, the media right now, it's tough. Most of the news that's getting published is the downsides to buying in this market. It's a bad investment. Things are happening, government. There's just a lot of negative publicity, and then of course, which affects real estate umbrella in general was the National Association of Realtors settlement, which was another big news thing. But as the time we're talking today, end of April, beginning of May, interest rates have spiked back up to 7.5% this week.
Wow.
So yeah, and I mean the lowest I've locked in my career was like a 1.7. So that is a drastic. I mean that's thousands of dollars increase in monthly payments, just within the last couple of years. So most people think though that you still can't get a lower interest rate because the national average for a 30-year fixed is 7.5. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of programs that will help first-time home buyers, second-time, third-time home buyers with down payment assistance and closing costs. You don't necessarily have to be a first-time home buyer for that. So you can use that, to offset some costs. There are a lot of buy down programs in which we call a rate buy down, is essentially you saying, hey, Nate, I really don't want to pay a 7.5% rate. Can I get, a 5.5% rate? And the answer is yes, those lower rates still do exist. They're just what we call a buy down, and there is a cost associated with that. So, one of the things we're seeing too is, and really a big myth, is that now is a terrible time to buy. And when interest rates go up, sellers are probably, they get the short end of the stick more than buyers do, because buyers, of course, can stay. Hey, I'm going to stay where I am. But as a seller with their house on the market, they're going, man, the amount of buyer pool has shrinked. Interest rates are going up. So what does that mean for me buying? But of course, they're looking to offload their house and sell their assets as quickly as possible, because a couple of years ago, I mean, homes were flying within a matter of hours of being on the market. So make a long story short, when interest rates do go up, sellers are a lot more eager to make a deal with buyers, which means, a buyer can negotiate most of their closing costs, if not all of them paid for, and a rate buy down of a various sorts to get a lower monthly payment and a lower rate, and you don't have to pay a high price for it. So they're really, when the interest rates go up, it's a good time to get a really good deal, because we know that, I mean, in the last 200 years, there's only really been one time that houses overall have declined in value, and that was 08 and 09, because that was our fault. A big event there. But, especially in our local market, I mean, Chattanooga, Cleveland, North Georgia, so many people are flocking here that, of course, it's driving the prices up. So, I mean, it's not going to stop, though.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And, I read something, and how the old saying goes, if you read it on the internet, it must be true, right? But I read something. I just wanted to know if you could give validity to it or debunk it, either one. And they said that the Fed had already announced ahead of time that they had planned on reducing the rate maybe multiple times this year. So was there any validity to that announcement?
So essentially there's projections. So, of course, at least once a quarter, somebody from the Fed group steps up, and it's been Jerome Powell, quite a bit on commenting, and there are various other people that comment on certain things. But the projections of the discussions that they had were, especially the last half of 2023, all the economic reports that were published that quarter stated that the inflation, number was coming down closer to the Fed's target, that the economy was starting to soften, spending, jobs, all these different things were happening that the government has been trying to do before they decrease their rate. And so the projection was, March of this year it would happen. But as the first quarter rolled out, the complete opposite showed, and it was the economy is not softening or slowing down. Inflation is not coming down. And unfortunately, then it was projections will be a discussion in May. And then, of course, we're close to May and the reports have gotten even worse,
Yeah.
And not worse. I mean, they're good for the economy, but they're not good for, what of course, interest rates coming back down. So now the projection, there's a small, chance that it may happen, in the summer, but most of our analysts, most of the market experts are saying that it will probably be later this year. There's just not enough evidence to give the Feds the confidence to start lowering rates because, their projections are here. And then, the actual results of the economy are coming out just a lot higher. So there is some validity to that. A lot of it is more of market, experts and indicators and based off of data. There's some that make some decisions because really the Fed, I mean, they're mostly vague in what the information they give. And so, of course, it leaves most of us guessing and projecting. And so, but there is a lot of truth to, they were very hopeful that they would start making some cuts by this time. And we all were very hopeful, but the economy says different.
Well, it's kind of like one of them things where we're gonna hope, but then later on we're gonna say, but wait, there's more. That's kind of one of those situations. Yeah. And but you're talking about people, that's one of the reasons I stopped watching the news. I mean, Lord, everybody has an opinion, and you get them all floating out there. There used to be an older gentleman I knew of, and he said, you take my opinion and your opinion, everybody else's opinion, and put them in a bag and shake them up and dump them out. There's not any of them worth a plug nickel. They're just opinions, But when people start giving their opinions and it affects the economy and affects the way people are thinking, there's one thing that's for sure. Owning at whatever rate, interest rates you have to get it at, it's still better than renting. I mean, it's just still better than renting because unless you just want to rent, you're not going to get that money back, for sure. Whereas if you invest in something, then good chance you're going to be able to get that money back one way or the other. So just kind of wanted to throw that in. If you don't call that my opinion, okay, just throw it in the bag.
Well, and there was a statistic floating around in the last year that like 50-60% of homes owned in America were owned outright in cash. And you think about just the value that's in those homes that have increased, over generations, a lot of real estate passed down and it is such a smart investment. I mean, not only does it give you memories, you cook, you raise your kids there, you do all these, emotional, cool, fun things, but it is such a tool and a strategy to build wealth, that most people overlook that piece of, investing into 401k IRA or, savings either. You're right. I mean, when it comes to renting, there's really no rate. I mean, there probably is one, but they could keep, the Ys from buying. I mean, I'll tell you, the Ys have been buying for the last 6 months, and they've been buying investment properties. They've been buying single families because most people are like, man, I wish I would have paid for that beach house in the 80s because, man, it would have been worth, so much more. And it's like, well, that graph and real estate's only going to go up from here. And it's hard though, because there are some people that It's like, well, even $150,000-$200,000 house, which is not first time home buyer range anymore, you really have to get up into 300s for that to get a nice, good starter home. There's most people that just truly cannot afford that mortgage payment. So that's where it's really hard to see.
Yeah. Nate, I'm sitting here looking at you face to face. The people, our listeners, can't do that. So I see a guy here that's like got a young family, that's successful in his career. But speaking about your family, I always like to turn things a little personal if we can before we just totally, get through talking. So you've got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. Now, some people would say y'all are very brave to have two children in the terrible twos at the same time.
Yeah.
What do y'all do for
fun? That a lot.
What do y'all do for fun, Nate, when you're not helping people get a mortgage? What do y'all do for fun?
Well, I tell you, family life is so important, and I started my career on the wrong foot by not putting my family first, and I put my career first, and it almost cost me my marriage.
Oh, wow.
So my marriage is very important to me, and my business has grown exponentially just in a short period of time. I truly feel like because we put family fun, our relationships first. Because I truly believe that's the part of us that sells the most. It's not really the rate, it's not really the company, it's who we are as people. And I feel like we develop, more as human beings the more we invest into our family and our recreation. So, our marriage is super important. But we're big Disney people. We love to go to Disney World. We've got annual passes, and
cool.
I think last year we went about 5 times. So we. We love Disney, and surprisingly, our kids do remember. A lot of people say, "Well, I'm taking them to Disney." They don't remember. Our kids remember a lot.
That's great.
When we're asking what they want to pray for at night, they're like, "Can we go back to Disney? We pray for the workers that are there, and pray for the my son calls it a face ship instead of a spaceship." But we do that. We love getting out on the boat and the lake here in the summer and hanging out there. We do travel. My wife and I travel, to get away together, just the two of us, at least once a quarter as well.
That's nice.
So we love to have fun. We got a couple of beach trips planned this summer, and traveling is a big part about our recreation and fun. We've learned we really have to have at least some type of fun, something every single quarter, something to look forward to. Because if not, we'll just work and the schedule will get away from us, and then we'll look back and, man, a year's gone by and we haven't made any memories. So,
well, let me ask you this: if there was one thing that you wish our listeners knew about Nate Byram and Guaranteed Rate that they probably wouldn't know unless you told them, and you'd like to just shout it from the rooftops, what would it be?
I think we were talking earlier before this started. My passion is marriages, and company aside, mortgages aside. I'm an advocate for relationship, for marriages, and we have a marriage and relationship podcast. It's called the Just Go With It podcast that we've started together. And so I really take that same approach as a local lender in coaching clients, and it's not, I'm telling them what to do, and forcing them to do things. It's more of like an advisor role of being, transparent on, fees and steps and things that are happening, and answering questions and taking, multiple conversations with clients to answer their questions. Because truthfully, buying a home is a very vulnerable, intimidating, and just an uncomfortable process. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's 35 people, from title company, realtor, appraiser, all these different people and personalities that we have to manage throughout an entire process. So it's very intimidating. And so, I think we love to make things simple and easy, and we take an advisory type approach, which really helps, ease clients through the process, and it creates a great experience as well. They really feel like, hey, this guy, this team, they took care of me. They cared about the little things. They listened to me. They heard me. And, because if you get a bad mortgage, even with a good rate, and you get a bad house, it can start that chapter off of your life on a very negative note. And it's by far could possibly be one of the biggest purchases of your life. And we take that very seriously and very candidly.
That's a good point. Good point. Yeah, it is a scary process to buy a house. Definitely. It can be a very, very scary, tricky path to travel. So if you've got a good advisor, a good coach, a guide, it's a wonderful thing. Nate, I would like, before we close out, I'd like for you to share with people how they can reach you, whether it be online or offline. Just give us all the different ways.
Yeah. So honestly, you could probably Google me, Nate Byram at Guaranteed Rate, and most of my website contact information, social media, but Nate Byram on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as well. We've got a YouTube channel that we put a lot of content out on as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the best place to find me. We typically like to schedule appointments for conversations, initial steps, and we call it our goal setting meeting, where we talk about, your needs for buying, your goals in buying, and then kind of the next steps and explanation of the process.
Okay.
So either one of those are a great way to take the first step and reach out.
And that's Nate Byram, Byram.
That's correct.
The reason I'm pointing that out, I know there's people around this area that spell it Byrum.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to find the right Nate Byram.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. My email is nate.byram@rate.com. Our office line is 423-682-1773 as well.
Okay. All right.
You can text or call.
Absolutely. So Nate, it was wonderful meeting you today, sir. And great hearing more about what you do and learning a little bit about your family. So thanks for being with us on the Good Neighbor podcast.
Thank you. I sure appreciate the opportunity.
It's our pleasure. And to all the good neighbors of the greater Chattanooga area, after meeting Nate and learning more about Guaranteed Rate, we hope you'll take a moment to consider all he has to offer and remember him when you need or want the products and services that he provides. And before ending this episode, I'd like to thank you all, the listeners, for taking time out of your busy day to visit with us at the Good Neighbor podcast. Always remember to support the locally owned and or operated businesses in the greater Chattanooga area, all the way from Cleveland to Dalton and everywhere in between. This is Scott Howell of the Friends and Neighbors Group. Everyone go out and make this a remarkable day.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpcleveland.com. That's gnpcleveland.com or call 423-380-1984.